Welcome to the Times of Israel's daily briefing. Today is Wednesday, November 5th, day 761 of the war. Amanda Borschel-Dan here with our New York correspondent, Luke Tress. Hi, Luke. Thank you so much for joining me after such a busy election day.
Yep, thanks for having me.
Democrat Zohran Mamdani was elected mayor of New York City, defeating former Governor Andrew Cuomo and Republican Curtis Sliwa. Mamdani is a far-left anti-Israel activist and 34-year-old state assembly member who is now the city's youngest mayor in over a century. So we're going to talk about the concerns among some of New York's Jewish community in the lead up to the election and some of their responses so far. All of this and more when we're back.
I always say, if there's one thing we need to do really well, it's delight the customer. Our goal is for everything we do to quietly fade into the background so the customer simply thinks, wow, that was really easy. What's made this journey so meaningful is the ongoing challenge of delivering personal connection and thoughtful, tailored service in a virtual world. And especially now, that connection feels more important than ever. We're one nation, one family. When we heard about Chayalim getting engaged and planning quick weddings, we knew we wanted to help. So we gifted them beautiful ketubas, a small but heartfelt thank you for their courage, their protection, and all they're doing for Am Yisrael. We hear it all the time. People are saying, this is the best company I've ever worked with. And honestly, that comes down to one thing, the care each team member puts into every single order.
And we're back. I'm Amanda Borschel-Dan here with our New York correspondent, Luke Tress. Overnight, the remains of IDF Staff Sergeant Itai Chen, a dual U.S.-Israeli citizen, were returned to Israel. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has said so far that the U.S. honors his life, mourns his loss, and stands with his family. Chen was the final hostage with U.S. citizenship still being held by Hamas. His father, New York native Ruby Chen, became a vocal and unflagging activist on the world stage. Let's tune to New York, where Democrat Zohran Mamdani was declared the winner of a closely watched mayoral race. And Luke, you were on site at the Cuomo camp during the concession speech. So tell us, first of all, give us a little bit of color from the scene in the Cuomo camp.
Yeah, so Cuomo, his campaign held an event in Midtown Manhattan. There was a few hundred people there. And people started gathering as the vote count came in. And it was very quickly called for Mamdani. I think much sooner than most people expected. And at first, when the results came in, people were not really believing it. They felt it was too early and wanted to wait. But people weren't shocked by it. I think most people did not, like, he was way behind in polls for the whole race. So most people were not expecting him to win. They were, I think, holding out hope, but not really expecting a win. So it wasn't like there wasn't a big dramatic response to it. It was kind of muted. But people were disappointed, especially Jewish supporters there who I talked to, who said they're really afraid of Mamdani mayorship and what might come.
Right. So Mamdani has raised at least eyebrows, if not a lot of alarms among the Jewish community since the primary election, essentially. And as you and I spoke during that period, you said that usually, in terms of New York mayoral history, the person who wins the Democrat primary is usually the mayor. That this has been historically the case. And so I suppose nobody is really surprised that it actually panned out that way. But let's talk about right now why Mamdani has raised such an alarm among much of the Jewish community.
So he's been a long time really committed anti-Israel activist. This goes back to his days in college, more than a decade ago, when he founded his campus chapter of Students for Justice in Palestine. And he said the Palestinian cause is central to his identity. It's what got him into politics. It's one of his main motivations in politics. So It's really central to him. And then he's like, I was writing something today, and it's hard to even keep track of all the controversies there have been since the primary. So a big one was he defended the phrase globalize the Intifada, which many Jews view as a threat. And then he walked it back a little bit after this huge outcry and said he would discourage it. He refuses to recognize Israel's right to exist. He kind of quibbled recently when he was asked about whether Hamas should lay down its weapons. He's said he's an anti-Zionist. So it's been one thing after another since the primary when it comes to Israel to Israel issues, and this has alarmed a lot of Jewish people because they worry that having an anti-Zionist as mayor of the city with the largest Jewish population in the diaspora will fuel antagonism toward Jewish people and create a hostile environment for Jewish people who are supportive of Israel, which is the overwhelming majority of Jewish people here.
So Luke, Mamdani has very clearly differentiated, or attempted to at least, between his stance on Israel and his support for the Jewish community. But it sounds as if much of the Jewish community just wasn't buying that.
Yeah, he says he's very much against anti-Semitism. He has a plan to oppose anti-Semitism. He has Jewish supporters who vouch for him. But yeah, a lot of people don't buy it that much. Jews are targeted in hate crimes way more than any other group. Last month, 62% of hate crimes targeted Jewish people. So typically Jews are targeted more than all other groups combined. And so there's this worry about creating this hostile environment for Jews. And then there's concerns about his actual policies and actions as mayor. Like a lot of people I spoke to tonight at Cuomo's event are worried about his handling of anti-Israel protests and whether they will be properly policed. People are worried about education in the school system under Mamdani. Israelis are worried. Israeli businesses are worried. Israeli students. So, there are a lot of concerns in a lot of different areas.
And somewhat uniquely, because it is, of course, still election day in New York, though it is well past midnight by the time we're speaking, we're already hearing responses from some of the, larger Jewish community organizations, including the UJA Federation of New York. So what are we hearing so far from them about the Mamdani win?
Yeah, so UJA Federation of New York, which is the umbrella group for Jewish organizations here. It's really big, significant group. They put out a statement. They don't get into politics that much, but they put out a statement saying something along the lines of Mamdani is at odds with our community's deepest convictions, and we're going to hold him accountable. The Anti-Defamation League said something similar. The Union for Reform Judaism also. They're all really expressing concern, and they're not congratulating him on the win. I haven't gone through all the responses yet, but I haven't, besides really leftist groups, I haven't really seen anybody congratulating him. And it's significant because these groups will have to work with him. Like UJA and the Jewish Community Relations Council of New York, for example, do the annual Israel Parade in New York, which is a big deal for the Jewish community. And Mamdani has said he's not going to march in it, but that he will provide security. So there's a lot of things where these groups will have to work with Mamdani, and they're being forceful already, saying, we're going to hold him accountable if he goes against our community. So it will be really interesting to see how this relationship develops.
Okay, let's go to a short break.
On October 7, I was here at the Nova Music Festival. I ran for my life, hid for 7 hours. Terrorists shot me twice. Thankfully, I survived. I'm still dealing with trauma, and I'm not alone. 3 million Israelis are in trauma. They need mental health care or physical rehabilitation. Wounded soldiers, families, and scared children.
Since 1912, Hadassah has been a life-changing force in Israel. Today, Hadassah has 2 world-renowned hospitals, pioneers breakthrough medical research, cares for youth, and has built the much-needed and largest rehabilitation facility in Jerusalem.
Thank you to everyone at Hadassah Hospitals. You've been helping me, and so many others. And a special thanks to one nurse, my mom. I love you.
And we're back. I'm Amanda Borschel-Dan here with our New York correspondent, Luke Tress, on Election Day in New York. So we were talking about some of the possibilities that Mamdani could implement as mayor. And let's talk about some of the things that he's already done and see how it could play to the future. So we have heard already that Mamdani will not reinvest in Israel bonds, which were de-invested, I guess would be the divested in 2023, if I'm not mistaken. And when he was just an assembly member, he, in May 2023, introduced a bill, let me get this right, that was called Not on Our Dime, Ending New York Funding of Israeli Settler Violence Act. And this bill didn't make it anywhere when he was just in that role. But as mayor, do you see any kind of possibility that Mamdani could reintroduce divestment bills of this nature?
So he's a longtime BDS supporter. The comptroller is going to be Mark Levine, who's Jewish and he's pro-Israel. So he handles most of the financial decisions for the city, and he supports investing in Israel bonds. So it's unclear what's going to happen there, because Mamdani can also appoint people in the bureaucracy who have influence over this. So in terms of bonds, it's unclear. The not on our dime. So the mayor can't just pass laws. Like, the mayor's limited in his legislative power. For most laws, he needs to go through the city council or the state assembly. So things like the not on our dime bill, as mayor, he doesn't have a huge amount of power to push those things through without broader support. What I've been talking to about people, what people are more concerned about is his appointments in city government. So the mayor does have a lot of power to appoint people all over city government with not a lot of checks on that power. So he could appoint people to the education system, for example, like far-left anti-Israel people to the education system, who could make curriculum decisions that are anti-Israel, for example, that could have a really far-reaching impact. He can appoint people to the police, to financial positions. So I think for a lot of people, that's more the concern now, is his appointments in city government more than pushing through legislation.
Okay, we are the Times of Israel. So our coverage of Mamdani has been very focused on this anti-Israel stance and the, whiff of anti-Semitism that has somehow surrounded him for, quite a few years. But I just wonder, in mainstream media or just regular run-of-the-mill New Yorkers, how much of Mamdani's anti-Israelness is really a factor, or how large of a role could it play with him as mayor?
Yeah, it will be interesting to see how that plays out. Like, we don't really know how that's going to go. I spoke to one Jewish political organizer today, and she is worried that, like, he's made these far-reaching promises, like, I'm going to make buses free and childcare free, and it's going to be hard to actually pull that off. So, like, she's worried that he'll lean into Israel advocacy as kind of a distraction if he can't pull that off.
Or anti-Israel advocacy, as the case may be, right?
Yeah. There's there was a report last week about how much Israeli businesses contribute to New York City. It's tens of billions of dollars and tens of thousands of jobs from Israeli companies. So if he goes after Israeli companies and they move out of the city, I don't think that will be popular with the average New Yorker. So yeah, we'll really have to see. I mean, for his far left base, which is the Democratic Socialists of America, they're really committed to anti-Israel activism. So they will want to see some activity there. The average New Yorker, I don't think it's a priority for them. So I don't think they want to see the mayor, wasting time on a conflict that's thousands of miles away.
So leading up to the election, you went out canvassing or with a team of Jews who were canvassing for Mamdani. And much of what I understood from your reporting is that these particular Jews themselves are pretty anti-Israel. But what were you hearing from them in terms of their concerns over, the rampant anti-Semitism or the atmosphere that is rather threatening to Jews that we're reading about, at least, that is happening in New York?
So, yeah, I went out. It's a group called Jews for Economic and Racial Justice. They're pretty lefty. They've been helping Mamdani with his campaign. I mean, some of them agree with his anti-Israel advocacy. Some of them, it's just not an issue. But I think they mostly agree with his policies. Like aside from the Israel issue, they mostly want to see his affordable how. Like the biggest thing they talked about was his affordable housing policies. They all said that was their main motivation. So they like that. They like the focus on transportation and childcare. So I think for a lot of the leftist Jews who support him, the support is really not that motivated by his Israel policies. It's more they're just leftists and support his other policies, and the Israel issue is not that much of a concern for them. And I think these are Jews who are less concerned with Israel already and less embedded in communities that are connected to Israel. So it's just, I think, less of an issue for a lot of them.
Okay, let's turn to another person who is not really a friend of Israel for many years. And I'm talking about the UN Special Rapporteur for the Palestinians, Francesca Albanese. And last week, she posted a cartoon denouncing Israel, depicting what appears to be a global spider web. So the spider imagery is something that, it's a bit of a dog whistle, isn't it, for many of us? So Luke, tell us about this particular cartoon.
So Albanese, she's the special rapporteur for the Palestinians at the UN, which means she investigates Israel essentially, and she has this platform for her views on Israel and gets resources for these investigations. And she and also her predecessors in this role are just virulently anti-Israel. It's really essentially an activist position, although they're supposed to be objective. And as we reported a few years ago when she took up the position, she has this history of anti-Semitism on social media. Like, for instance, saying at one point the Jewish lobby has subjugated America. So there's this history of anti-Semitic tropes with her. And a problem reporting on her is she says, to the Israeli ears, she says things that sound pretty outrageous almost every day. After there was this talk after Hamas surrendered that there needs to be disarmament and de-radicalization in Gaza. And she said, the real disarmament and de-radicalization needs to happen to Israelis, which, to Israelis, when you're comparing Hamas to Israel, it sounds crazy, but she says this stuff all the time. So, she posted this cartoon last week. It shows what appears very much to be a spider web covering the world. On the spider web strands are cash and weapons. And there's this long history of anti-Semitic propaganda depicting Jews as spiders or controlling spider webs to control the world. And the Nazis did this. Researching this story, I found images from Der Stürmer, which was a Nazi propaganda outlet doing this. The Protocols of the Elders of Zion, which was this forgery about Jewish control of the world. One of the editions of the book had this Jewish spider covering the world. And the Soviet Union did this in their propaganda too, depicting these kind of Jewish spiders on these spider webs. So there's this long history of this. I shared the cartoon with some Israeli researchers at YIVO, which is a Jewish research center in New York City. and the U.S. Holocaust Museum, just to make sure I wasn't the one thinking this was crazy. And they all said like this is really a bad cartoon to be putting out there. Like it's dangerous to share this kind of imagery and bring this kind of thing up again.
And what was Albanese's defense of this cartoon? She had a response.
Yeah, so she didn't respond directly, but I contacted her office. Her office said this was a net. It's not a spider web, although it looks very much to me like a spider web. And they said it's kind of, so like she put this cartoon out to advertise her last report, which is about different countries contributing to the war in Gaza. So she said this is a net, and it depicts this global network that's supporting Israel's war across all these different sectors like finance and military. And so then I was wondering, like, is it a net? Is it a spider web? And I went back through some of her old speeches, and she has repeatedly talked about a web, like a global web, or this concept. It's language she uses all the time, talking about this web that's fueling Israel. So, and in the report she was using to advertise this cartoon, she also talks about this global web fueling Israel's war in Gaza. So, yeah, that was her response. I don't.
Yeah. Okay. No surprise, really. And thank you, Luke, for always bringing these things to our attention. Luke, it is incredibly late where you are. You've had a really busy day. And so I'm going to let you go. And thank you so much for your updates and insights today.
Yeah, good to be here. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Times of Israel's Daily Briefing. Please check out another installment tomorrow. This episode was produced by the Podwaves. If you have any questions or comments about today's episode or any other episode, please drop us an email to podcast@timesofisrael.com. Until tomorrow, shalom.